Hola mis chismosas, this is the very first episode of Chismosas Glam Crime. Yay! I'm so excited. Basically what I do here is get ready and give you history, mystery, scandals, psychology of people who have done very dark things and people who you probably didn't even think have done creepy, horrible things to others. But let's get into this. Today we will start with the name that is define the seduction, wealth, and controversy, which is Hugh Hefner. But this story goes way beyond the silk robes and the cute little bunny ears. It's about power, manipulation, silenced women, as well as the dark truth behind the Playboy dream. So if you're ready, which I hope you are, because once we enter the mansion, there's no going back. Well, before we get started, just a little disclaimer. I am severely sunburned from this past weekend. I did not wear sunblock. Wasn't smart of me. So I'm going to be drinking water throughout this whole video because a girl is dehydrated. And in pain. And that's not enough water in that cup. But anyway, let's get started. Con el hombre Hugh Hefner. He was to some people a sexual revolutionary, and to others he was just a manipulator man who was dressed in a nice fancy silky robe. Okay, this is not even at all. I don't even think I'm even. So, before I really get into all the details and everything that I have about the Hugh Hefner and the Playboy magazine and the mansion and everything, not trying to be disrespectful or anything, and I really do hope that the victims and everyone who has suffered from this man and this organization and everything understands them. Just trying to kind of sort of spread information and everything like that. But yeah, now this has to go on very nicely. So if there's any information on here that's not correct or it's not 100% like how it was, I do apologize. I did as much research as I could, and I hope it is okay. But let's finally get this started. Hugh Hefner launched Playboy magazine in 1953, where he actually used nude photos of Marilyn Monroe without her consent. That's horrible to think of. But the photos actually weren't owned by her. They were actually owned by a photographer who had the rights to them. So that's where he got them. And the crazier part is that he didn't spend a lot. You would think maybe nowadays a photo like that of Marilyn Monroe would be like $1 million or thousands of dollars. But he bought it for a couple hundred. And I still think that's pretty insane and crazy, because she didn't know. She wasn't aware she was going to be part of this magazine. And from my understanding, she wasn't really, involved with the whole Playboy franchise and stuff like that. Ooh, I do not multitask and talk well at the same time. But anyways, that's something I didn't know about myself. Anyways, back into it. Yeah, so he used Marilyn Monroe pictures. It went big. A lot of people got very intrigued by it, obviously. And it captured the world in a good and bad way. Because during the time, people weren't really that open with sex and showing off your body or being very exposed in that matter, or have certain things like that actually be in the media. Hefner called the Playboy Mansion a place of sexual freedom, but many insiders described it as controlled and manipulative and cult-like. If you were a fan of The Girls Next Door, and also have read Holly's book, and certain interviews, as well as the Playboy Mansion Secrets, the Deep Dark Secrets series, which I have watched, and I am addicted. And the Playboy Murders, so addicted, because it's crazy of how many people perished because they lived that lifestyle, as well as people who were searching a certain future and basically met their end there. A big unknown fact about Hugh Hefner: Hefner kept detailed files on the girl, former employees. He also claimed he had blackmail folders with photos, letters, and recordings to keep the girls quiet. Once again, but yeah, this information about him keeping files and pictures to blackmail the girls is so sad. Because imagine you have this idea that you can start your career, or you actually enjoy doing modeling, and you needed a way in there, and this was one of the opportunities that you could get, or you needed more opportunities in life to help yourself grow and everything, and the person you're supposed to trust, the man that they make out to be this great guy who gives these women a chance to prove themselves and to show who they really are, just ends up being this dude who wants to get things out of you and doesn't care for you because he has it all and he could do it all, because that's what money does. Sorry to say, but that's what money does. Anyways, the Playboy bunnies were branded as glamorous and beautiful beings, absolutely top-notch gorgeous, and these, I think you would like to say, like, fantasy for men and women. Let's not exclude women. But behind the lashes and behind the lingerie and everything, there was a much darker truth within the mansion. If you ask why I keep looking that way, my notes are over there. So, but the mansion had strict rules. There was no dating without Hef's permission. Curfew was at 9 every night, and that was like a strict thing. The girls were not home by 9. They would have a sort of punishment, and also no talking back to him on the decisions that he made. If you haven't watched the series where the twins get their interview, not the Playboy Murders, but the Playboy Mansion Deep Darkest Secret, I believe that's how it's called, they talk about how they were in trouble for breaking curfew and how they were locked in their rooms because of it too, because they didn't follow the rules, which is so scary and sad. Like, they even had to get permission if they wanted their family, like, to go see their family, or their family to come visit. Like, it wasn't just small things. It was like, oh, you gotta be home by this hour. No. I just deleted a whole part of this makeup. It's okay, it's just blending. But let's continue. Some of the girls were pressured into getting plastic surgery by Hugh Hefner. He would make certain comments, say certain things, compare the girls to one another. And other girls, they did want to change themselves willingly. And he would pay for their plastic surgeries and whatever they wanted, as long as he received complete obedience, which is absolute madness in my mind. But I get it. This man had women around the 2000s. He had women that were in their late teens, early 20s, and he was a 70, 80-year-old guy. And if you were if you understand because I'm in my late 20s and I totally understand how it feels to be surrounded by women and compare yourselves, right? And now let's add this guy who is absolutely the worst, and you don't see that. You just see this guy giving you everything you ever desired and more, and telling you he's willing to give you more, but at the same time talking bad about you. And you have a group of women that are doing the same thing, which is not the funnest thing to actually have. It's not a great environment. And psychologists actually claim this to be a coercive, I don't know where I was going, my brain floated away, coercive control, where an abuser manipulates his environment around him, where his victims feel they have no other choice but to comply and to follow the rules and to do everything that is said for them to do. Crazy. My notes are right here, so I have to but now it's here where the glamour truly fades from the whole Playboy. These are some deaths that were linked to the Playboy lifestyle, and not just a tragic but also very chilling way on how these girls died. So one of the very first deaths that occurred, from my understanding, was Paige Young, a 1968 Playmate who ended up taking her own life and left behind a note that actually called out Hollywood elite and Hugh Hefner. No mainstream outlet covered it in depth. So basically, it wasn't really covered or said why she did what she did. It was just kind of looked over and announced. The second Playmate who passed was Dorothy, and I'm so sorry if I butcher her last name, Stratton, I think that's what that says, Stratton. She was a 1980 Playmate of the Year, and she was murdered by her estranged husband after being pressured to being in the limelight. Hefner and others were accused to completely ignore the signs of what was going on with her and her husband, but we can't really say for sure or why or anything like that. Like I said, it's just an accusation, not really much to it. The second person, not murdered, but she is a former girlfriend who was really abused and mentally manipulated by Hugh Hefner, is Holly Madison, which she has her own podcast with Bridget, called, I listened to it and I forgot the name of it. I'm gonna put it down here just so everyone knows. But yeah, they have their own podcast where they actually talk about secrets and other things that have happened, things that weren't part of the show of Girls Next Door, which I am so sad to say, but that's one of my guilty pleasure shows. I love watching it. But it's sad when you actually listen to what was actually going on than what is being showed, because it makes you understand the way they're speaking, the tone and everything. It's kind of more oh, okay, I get it now. Because there's certain scenes in there that I was I don't get that, but they explain it. And they talk about other things too, which I love them. They're so cute. Anyways. But former bunnies also come out explaining how Well, they speak of being blamed for sexual assault experiences, told that they knew what they signed up for, and other things whenever they came out to kind of sort of just say what's happening. And it's kind of horrible. You know, this culture of victim blaming isn't just exclusive to the mansion. It's literally woven into the fabric of fame. Doesn't matter like who you are or anything. When you're out in the spotlight, especially being in a company such as big as the Playboy company, you know, people go, well, obviously that was going to happen. Do you not see what kind of environment you decided to be in? Which I think is just horrible. And it doesn't matter if you take new photos, if you do sexual content. It doesn't matter, guys. It does not matter. No one deserves to be harassed, sexually assaulted, the other word that rhymes with rape, and feel uncomfortable when they're promised that everything's gonna be okay and that nothing is gonna happen to them. That somewhere where they should feel safe and sound and trust those around them. That's the whole thing in anything that anybody does. You don't victim blame. Because there's a lot of, if you've never been to the museum of I forget what it's called. Oh my god, I'm forgetting everything. So nervous. First episode. Trying to do my best. But there's a museum that shows what people wore when they were sexually assaulted. And by the clothes and the ages, it is absolutely depressing. And there's no excuse. None. It doesn't matter. You don't treat others with that mentality of mind because something bad happened to them. They don't deserve it. And regardless of the lifestyle they chose, no one deserves that. Just putting that out there. Because it's not okay to just say, oh, well, you chose this life, deal with it. No. Now we're going to get into the psychology of Hugh Hefner, like actually deeper in there on everything. I am going to blend while I say all this. But anyways, let's break it down. Hugh Hefner wasn't just selling sex, he was selling the illusion of control, a lifestyle where men had all the power and women were just the accessories. You know, you get what I'm saying? I hope you do. He kept his circle close, much like a cult leader does, and have controlled access to the outside like the outside world, and dictated an image. You know, everything had to be by him, like run by him before anything was out. Like you couldn't say anything, do anything before he heard it. And if I'm not mistaken, the show actually gave a little bit of freedom to the girls to actually start having a voice and speaking up and getting the attention and certain things like that. But he still controlled stuff. He was still in the background of the TV show and of the magazine, of everything, to make sure that everything out in the public looked exactly how he wanted. And nothing made him look bad. No matter what controversy or what issue or if there was a death or a problem, he always had a resolution on how it would come out and how it's going to look out in the public and everything. Many women entered the Playboy world seeking... I'm going to do my eyeliner. But I'm going to tell you this fact first. And then do this in a very fast, speedy way. So, many women enter the Playboy world seeking validation, stability, and as well as opportunity, as we've spoken before, only to find themselves trapped in a house of just complete mirrors. If you don't know what that means, I mean, you are in this house where everything is highlighting you. But at the same time, as you're looking at yourself in this reflection and everything around you, you have this man who is criticizing and judging and making you not feel like you're actually worth the person that you are. And you know, everyone experience of the Playboy, from doing a shoot to meeting him to living there, has a different experience. And I don't think any of the girls' stories are fake. I don't think any of the girls' stories are wrong. I think, you know, we talk about Kendra, Bridget, and Holly, and each and every one of them, as well as the twins and Hugh Hefner's wife, widow, Crystal, they each have a different experience. They each have a different story. And every person who's ever been around this environment describes it differently. Some had great experience and others had horrible experience. It doesn't mean that anyone is wrong. It doesn't mean that no one is telling the truth. It's just what they had witnessed, what happened, and how it happened for them. You know, like, it has nothing to do with what am I trying to say here? Basically, everyone's story is validated regardless of what it is. It validates, okay? And I think you're looking at this look and going, I tried with that eyeliner. Looks a little weird. Who cares? I do. Add the last details in speedy motion, and then finish out the story. Lashes are on, makeup is done, the look is complete, and we have come to the ending of the story. But besides everything, this isn't a story of just one man. It's a story of how glamour can hide pain, and how society often turns a blind eye when powerful men rewrite the truth and hide the true feelings of what's happening around people's lives. And just because you see it on screen and it looks glamorous and beautiful or anything like that, doesn't mean that there's more going on than what is shown. To the women who survived, who were silenced, and who were blamed, we see you. And to those no longer with us, may your stories finally be heard, and you know, people respect them and respect everyone who was a part of this story as well. Please, don't send any hate to anybody or judge anyone for anything either. I know this story wasn't as in detailed or a lot going on in there, but I promise you want to see the next one, which we go into Marilyn Monroe and her glamorous life, as well as her dark secrets and the dark struggle that she went through as well. If this story shocked you and it interests you, then continue watching, subscribe, because here at Chismosas Glam Crime, we post every Wednesday, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope that everything was up to par, and I promise you this whole talking and doing will get a little bit better. But like, comment, and subscribe, and remember, being glam doesn't mean staying silent. See you next episode. Bye.